A new Marvel movie for Thor, whose big scary villain is Gore? Well, you wouldn't know it because they barely show it. Instead, we get way too much Korg. Yes, I know. First, I'll start off with the non-spoilery stuff. Thor 4 is a good movie. It's cheeky and it's funny. It's got some good gags and some good action sequences, but I'm worried that it focuses too much on its one-liners and not as much on actual story development. There's not much depth to it. Everything is very superficial. Overall, it's a good movie. It's not great. It is worth seeing, though, if you care about this franchise. The film just feels almost too scared to get serious. Like it would rather just tell jokes in every second of the film than risk scaring the children who have come to see it. And all it ends up doing is just cheapening any attempt at real emotion in the film. This film centers around love, the most universal and powerful concept in existence. Can gods love? What if they stop loving? The film seems to try to answer this in different ways. All the gods that we meet for the first time have become selfish, self-centered pricks who have stopped caring about any of the people who worship them. You know, typical god stuff. Not a bad story, not a bad foundation. However, we spend way too much time on whether or not Thor can love. But we know that he can. His whole arc in the first movie was about him learning to love beyond himself, thanks to the facilitator, Jane Foster. Ever since then, he's cared about the people around him more than himself. In Ragnarok, he makes huge sacrifices for the good of his people, and in Endgame, he abdicates the throne for Valkyrie. We know that Thor can love. We know that gods are capable of loving. But we also know that gods are capable of being just as terrible as humans and manipulate those who worship them. Which brings us to our villain, Gore. Gore has probably the most interesting arc that we'll never see in this movie. We get a great performance from Christian Bale at the beginning, and then a little bit at the end, and that's about it. In the middle, he's just a cliche villain. Like if you took all the crappy parts of all the on-screen Jokers and mixed them into one. Yeah, I said it. What we get instead is a road trip movie with Thor and friends, while Thor and Jane refuse for many scenes to address the elephant in the room. The fact that Jane is back, and she has the power of Thor. Now I'm going to cross into spoiler territory here, so if you haven't seen it, you've been warned. It turns out that Jane has cancer, which is tragic. Her fear of death pushes her closer to her own grave, and the idea of how far are you willing to go not to face your own mortality is a great idea for a story that they do not explore in this at all. Instead, Jane is saved by the hammer because Thor unknowingly used magic to make the hammer save her, but that's kind of loose, and then they kind of abandon it halfway through because she still ends up getting hurt. There's also this weird thing with Thor where he has this four-way lovers core between him, Jane, the hammer, and the axe, which makes no sense. Why does the axe get jealous? They were all fine and dandy in Endgame, and Thor had no problem letting go of the hammer at the end of that, so where did this all come from? We also never see how Jane feels about any of this. We get a moment of her in the bathroom as she refuses to accept that she's dying from cancer, but we never learn about how she feels about Thor, the axe hammer thing, nothing really. Valkyrie and Korg talk more about the whole situation than they do. Eventually, our heroes travel to the Shadow Realm, which is a very seriously dangerous place with comically small planets. And Jane comes across some of Gore's scribbles. And in these scribbles, Jane realizes that Gore has discovered the secret to unlocking eternity. This whole thing annoys me for two reasons. One, how does Jane know what eternity looks like? And two, how did Gore discover that Stormbreaker was the key in the first place? Did he torture a celestial for answers? Did he go on a crusade to a sacred temple? Those would be cool stories, but we never get to see them. Everything just happens off screen. Also, how convenient is it that the Bifrost is the key to unlocking eternity? The Bifrost that only Asgards can use, and Asgard's the people that are shunned by all the other gods. If this is a comic book thing, I'm sorry, but this just reeks of convenient coincidence. I guess that was three things. In the end, the kids are rescued, and Thor and Jane save the day, but at a cost. Thor finds meaning in his life again by losing one love and gaining a daughter, which is good for him, I guess. And his literal daughter, who is now playing his on-screen daughter, yeah, for the rest of the MCU. I really thought they were going to kill Thor off in this movie. Oh well. So that's my review of Thor: Love and Thunder. We're now 6 movies into Phase 4, and it feels like the old guard is wearing thin. I mean, Black Widow's movie was too little too late, and at least Doctor Strange tried to do something different, even if it didn't please everyone, and, well, Spider-Man was... Anyway, tell me what you thought of Thor: Love and Thunder. Do you agree with the things I said, or was I terribly wrong about something? Which is very possible. Let me know in the comments, and let me know what next film in Phase 4 you're excited to see. Peace. Follow me on social media at Rico the Bard, and check me out on Letterboxd if you care to know about what I think of other movies. Thanks for watching.